times it by the 50 multiple, and you are at $5,004 per share. Tesla stock finished 2023 up 129.86%. But that's not the real story we're going to get into today. Elon Musk just dropped a bombshell, and if he's correct, well, you're going to make a ton of money. Elon Musk says, quote, "I stand by my prediction that if Tesla executes extremely well over the next 5 years, that the long-term value could exceed Apple and Aramco combined." Here in this video, we will break down all of the key numbers that you need to know if Elon is correct and Tesla stock is valued more than Aramco and Apple combined. Well, where would that exactly put Tesla stock in terms of a share price? What kind of revenue numbers and profits would we likely need to see in order to achieve a $5 trillion valuation? We'll break all of that down here in this video. And let's get started with simply, what is the value of Apple and Aramco combined? Well, Apple has a market cap of about $3 trillion. Aramco has a market cap of $2.13 trillion. So that would be roughly a $5 trillion valuation. Tesla stock currently has a market cap of $778 billion. So we're pretty far off of $5 trillion. That would be about a 6.5x in the next 5 years. That would be over a 100% return over the next 5 years, every single year. Tesla, over the past 12 months, ending September 30th, has seen revenue of $95.92 billion. After we get this fourth quarter number, if deliveries are where I expect they will be, over 500,000, you could see this number break over $100 billion for the first time ever. But just for a little bit of context, Apple in 2022 had record revenue of $394.33 billion, so roughly 4 times higher than Tesla. So yeah, in order to get a $5 trillion valuation, Tesla's top and bottom line is going to have to grow big time from where we are currently at. But Tesla tends to trade at a higher multiple than Apple and surely than Aramco. Apple's around a 30 times multiple. Aramco is at a 16 times multiple. So they're a little bit different in that regards. But let's say, just start here, that Tesla gets to $400 billion in annual revenue. What could the valuation be roughly for Tesla stock? Well, if we go ahead and take out 25% for a profit margin of $400 billion, that would leave you with $100 billion of net profits. Divide this by 3.3 billion, considering, we don't see any more dilution. That would be a EPS of about $30.30. Now, let's say Tesla at this time has a P multiple of about 50. That would put Tesla stock at $1,515 per share. Well, wait, where would Tesla's stock be if the market cap was $5 trillion? And that's simple to figure out. If we need a 6.42x, basically 6.5x, you times the 6.5x number by the current share price of Tesla stock, which is $248.48, and that gives you $1,596 per share. So that is roughly a 30 EPS for a whole year times a 50 multiple, which you can fluctuate the multiple here. If you say 50, 52 or 53, you're going to get closer to $1,600, right? The multiple can change, and it all depends on what's going on at the time. If Optimus and robots are really becoming a reality, let's say 5 years from now, then the multiple could be a lot higher. This does likely factor in some Robotaxi revenues as well. It's going to be pretty hard to achieve this valuation without without the Robotaxi. Although that's just my opinion. Gary Black says to achieve a market cap that exceeds Apple and Aramco combined, Tesla needs to invest in its brand and not just product. Teslas have sold themselves up to now as early adopters, and green advocates have spread the good word. The next leg of growth will be accelerating EV growth through the mass segment and convincing those masses to buy Teslas rather than their ICE brands that have now extended into EVs. So what is he really saying here? Sounds like that $25,000 or cheaper Tesla, in which we know is coming likely pretty soon. Well, in the second half of 2024, we're at least expecting the announcement. In 2025, we're expecting the vehicle could actually start seeing deliveries. Now, I've done this calculation before, but we will do it again for the sake of this video. Now, Tesla believes they can get to 5 million of these 25,000 vehicles or $25,000 vehicles being sold. That doesn't take a whole long time, right? That would be $125 billion. If you strip out, let's say, again, 25% for the bottom line, that would be $31 billion worth of profits. Divide this by 3.3 billion shares currently outstanding, and you're looking at a potential EPS boost of $9.46 per share. Now, if you factor in FSD, if you factor in other different variables, which we will do slightly here for this calculation. So we'll still keep the 5 million vehicles, but we'll times this by, let's say, 27,000. Because Tesla doesn't break down exactly how many FSD units are sold every quarter. It just gets added to the average selling price, right? So maybe that changes at some point. But right now, if Tesla sold a $25,000 car and let's say 10% of people got FSD, it would be roughly $27,000 for the average selling price across all of these different $25,000 theoretical vehicles, right? Hopefully that makes some sense. But that would put you at $135 billion times that by 25%. Let's say the margin's about 25%. That would be $33.75 billion. Divide this by 3.3 billion shares, which are currently outstanding. Again, considering we don't see any dilution or anything like that. I'm not expecting that. Tesla doesn't need to do that, so that wouldn't make sense to me. That would now be an EPS of about $10.22 per share. Now, energy and storage is growing very fast. We know that. Like over 100% year over year. This upcoming quarter is going to be well over 100% growth as per our estimates. Now, Tesla China just bought property to start a new Megapack factory. We're expecting about 10,000 units per year to come out of this factory alone, let alone Lathrop or any other factories that will open over the next 5 years. Tesla's long-term goal for a profit margin on energy and storage is the mid 20% range. So we'll call it 25%. Currently, to buy one Megapack with a 2-hour duration, including installation, it's $2.1 million. So with that, we can come to some rough numbers. If we're expecting 10,000 units from China, we can pull about 10,000 units here just with the factories we have now. Let's say that scales to 15,000 units over the next 5 years or so. These are just some very rough numbers, and I'm trying to be a little bit more on the conservative side. So let's say 25,000 Megapacks a year in the next 5 years. I think that's very conservative numbers. That would be $52.5 billion. Again, divide this by 25%. That leaves you $13 billion, $13.1 billion of net profits. And divide this by 3.3 billion shares outstanding. and you get a number of about $3.97 for an EPS boost. Now let's factor in Tesla's legacy business, if you will, which is selling cars, not just your lower priced variant, but the entirety. Because Tesla has plans to get to about 20 million vehicles sold by the year 2030. So if 5 million of which are the $25,000 vehicles, well, that means that 15 million would come from the Model 3, Model Y, SX Cybertruck, or maybe the next gen Roadster when that comes out at that point. So now we have some other numbers that we can work with. So let's say 15 million. We'll go ahead and times that by an average selling price that is lower than today. We'll go ahead and do $42,000. The average selling price today is still about $45,000 to $46,000 as per most quarters. So that would put you at $630 billion of potential revenue. Just insane numbers here. Times that by a profit margin of 0.25%, let's call it 25%. That is $157 billion potentially of net profits. Divide this by 3.3 billion shares outstanding. That gives you an EPS of $47. Insane. So adding your EPS from 20 million total vehicles, 5 million of which being the $25,000 vehicle. Again, average selling price probably around $27,000 when you include FSD. When you factor in the additional 15 million vehicles with an average selling price of $42,000, which I am not including FSD in that, so the average selling price could be a little bit higher than that. Or if you just want to be conservative, go with $42,000. Maybe the average selling price of a Tesla is $38,000, but you include FSD and that brings it to $42,000. You could change the calculations different ways if you would like. And then we factored in almost $4 of EPS for the energy storage business. You come to $61.91 for Tesla's EPS by 2030, not including any revenue for Optimus, not including any revenue for the Robotaxi network, which could be the biggest opportunity for Tesla in and of itself. So if Tesla could pull in $61.91 of EPS by 2030, excluding again Optimus and any money from the Robotaxi, at a 50 times multiple, that would put Tesla stock at $3,095 per share. So, I mean, that would be 6 years out, not exactly 5 years, but still, you get the point. I mean, that's impressive. That would be a $10 trillion market cap on Tesla stock. I mean, just for shits and giggles, we'll go ahead and do a calculation, a rough calculation for what the Robotaxi network could provide. There's almost 8 billion people worldwide. About 20% of the world is considered developed. About 30% of the world will be considered developed around 2030. So I'm only going to look at the developed world because I don't think undeveloped countries are going to have Robotaxi technology. Certainly, it's possible that they do, but probably not. Okay, let's just, be honest there. And we'll go ahead and times this by 30. That's about 2.4 billion people that could potentially have access to the Robotaxi network. Let's be very conservative and let's say half of them never try it. You got 1.2 billion people that actually use Robotaxi on, some kind of basis. Let's say 3 times a year. I think that's pretty conservative. Some people are going to use it, 100 times a year. Some people are going to use it once a year. Some people are going to use it, twice a year or 5 times a year, whatever. Let's say average of 3 visits using the Robotaxi network a year. So we'll times that by 3. That's potentially 3.6 billion taxi rides every single year. let's say the average taxi ride is about $20, which it's higher than that. But let's say, innovation, everything, tends to bring down costs over time. But let's say $20. Let's say the margin on that for Tesla is around 50%. Now, this would be a fleet of Tesla run robotaxis. So let's say the net profit to that could be about $10 per taxi ride for Tesla, which would be about a 50% margin, right? If the total cost was $20, you factor in, maybe the maintenance costs for the vehicles, however you want to fix these numbers. And that's $36 billion of potentially net profit. Divide this again by 3.3 billion shares outstanding, and that's another boost of about $10.90 to EPS. Plus this by 61.91 that we just had. 61.90, that works too. And that's $72.80 of EPS, times that by 50 times multiple, and you're at $3,640 per share. And note, my Robotaxi calculation was very, very conservative. Okay, let's be a little bit unconservative. Again, let's do 8 billion people, times that by 30%, 2.4 billion. Let's say, again, half of the developed world does not even try to use the Robotaxi, which I think is again, very, very conservative. But let's say the average trip per year is 7. I think that could be a good number. Okay, 7. That would put 8.4 billion visits a year, or uses of the Robotaxi network. Let's again say it's $20 per trip, right? Which I think the average taxi cost is like $36. So $20, pretty conservative. Let's say Tesla has a 50% margin on that. Let's cut to the chase and say Tesla's, bringing in, it's probably more like a 75% margin. So let's say Tesla's bringing in about $15 every time, Tesla does a Robotaxi ride on average. And that is $126 billion of potentially net bottom line to Tesla. Divide that by 3.3 billion, and that's a boost of $38 per share for Tesla. Now, maybe this is, past 2030, who knows? It really depends how quickly the Robotaxi network does get going. And again, you add 61.91, the EPS for energy for the 20 million vehicles we're hoping Tesla achieves by 2030, and a little bit of FSD value in there. And you're going to come to an EPS of potentially 100. That would be for a year. That would be like $25 of EPS every quarter, which is, a lot, but it's definitely not unachievable. Let's just say that. Times it by the 50 multiple, and you are at $5,004 per share. As per my calculations, if things go as we expect they will, just using some pretty conservative numbers with a 50 times PE, that obviously could change things a lot. So if you think it'll be 30, go with that. I think 50 is pretty reasonable, because we're still at that point going to be expecting Optimus to come along. That's factoring in no additional revenue from that. That's not factoring in Dojo or any kind of subscription-like revenue as well. You could be looking at Tesla stock $3,000 to $5,000 in the next, 5-6+ years. If basically $1,600 is $5 trillion market cap, that would put Tesla stock at a $10 trillion market cap on the low end, as high as $30-40 trillion market cap on the higher end. That's I think Elon's actually undershooting the possibility that Tesla could have in front of it. But these are only my calculations, my estimates. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your estimates are, some of your calculations down below in the comments section. I would love to get a breakdown if you guys want to throw some numbers out there. We can definitely have a conversation down there, or you can come follow me on X as well. It's Michael Tyler, and we can go ahead and have that conversation over there. Or if you guys want to come trade with us live in real time, check out that link down below in the description of this video. Starting off 2024, it's going to be a exciting year, and probably right off the bat, I don't think we're going to have to wait too long for things to really start moving here in our market. So come join us. We've been killing it over there. Obviously, it's not a guarantee we will continue to do so, but so far so good. And 2024 hopefully is going to be an even better year than 2023, at least I think so. And I think it's going to be a really good year for Tesla stock. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.